here, get it going on YouTube. We're good.
Okay. All right, we'll call to order the July 14th Rockbridge County Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, Commissioner Member Hennis.
Here.
Commissioner Member Hines.
Here.
Commission Member Lucas.
Here.
Commission Member Whitmore.
Here.
And Commission Member McLaughlin is here. Okay, so please take notice that the July 14th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting will be held by electronic means pursuant to the continuity of government ordinance adopted by the board on April 5th, 2021, due to the threats posed by the COVID-19 pandemic to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. While some commission members may participate remotely, staff will be presenting as normal in the Board of Supervisors meeting room at 150 South Main Street, Lexington, 24450. In addition to the citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or to participate. We will hold citizen comments near the beginning of the meeting, and at that time, the public is welcome to make comments unrelated to any of the public hearings. Comments related to a public hearing should be held until that item is discussed and the public hearing is open. We'll do our best to take citizen comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. To join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar, the link is available on the county website to copy into the address line on your browser. Or you can join by telephone. You may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use raise your hand feature, and you can press raise hand button on the button on your Zoom window, or press *9 if you are calling by telephone. So at this time, we will go ahead and proceed with the meeting.
Chairman McLaughlin, I'd like to add an addition, or make a motion to add an additional agenda item to tonight's meeting. And that item is to initiate discussion about adding log yards as a use by special exception in the agricultural and general uses A2 district.
I'll second.
There's a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will put that on to, we'll make that motion, we'll make that item number 9 on the,
10.
no, we're going to move it up to 9 before the discussion of the solar ordinance review. So we'll make that number 9 on the agenda. Okay, so right now for citizen comments, I'll remind everyone that in addition to participating by Zoom or telephone, written citizens' comments have been solicited for receipt by way of email, U.S. mail, and the drop box located at the front entrance of the county administration building, and by way of email. I'll now open the floor to any citizen comments for any items not on the agenda. Okay, do we have anybody, any written comments?
No, sir, not for the general citizen comment period.
Do we have anybody who wishes to make citizen comments by way of Zoom or by way of phone?
Let me look here on the question and answer. There are no open questions. And as far as, no, sir.
All right, so we'll move on to the approval of the June 9th, 2021 minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Have a motion
A second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the Board of Supervisors report.
Yes,
Chris?
sir. At their June 28th meeting, the Board of Supervisors approved the Gantz-Tallman rezoning request on Brushy Hill per your recommendation. In addition to that action, they also approved Dynamic Energy Solutions LLC solar field, the Fitzgerald, the Alexander property, excuse me, per your recommendation, with the addition of some time frames associated with the project. When we got into the Board of Supervisors discussions, we realized that the time frame of implementing the project was fairly far out, And so staff felt it would be beneficial to add that particular time frame in there. And I think it's, without having it in front of me, I believe it's somewhere in 2023 is when they would actually start construction.
All right, thank you. Moving on now to the Carrie Height at 32 Wet Bear Lane, Board and Grant Trail.
Yes, sir. In attendance tonight, we have Mr. and Mrs. Height. If you bear with me here, I'm going to try to share my screen. Worried there for a little bit. All right. Again, in attendance, we have Mr. and Mrs. Height, the landowners and applicant. It's an application for a special exception permit for pet grooming, a kennel in the agricultural and general use district. That would be the A2 zoning district. The property is located in and surrounded by the A2 zoning district, as further identified as tax map number 40-A-25A. Miss Carrie Height has made an application for a special exception to permit a dog grooming business. The property is owned by Carrie and Bradley Height and consists of 1 acre per tax record. The property is located at 32 Wet Bear Lane, Fairfield, Virginia, and again is located in the A2 zoning district. Per section 603.03-5 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, commercial kennels are a use by special exception. Kennels, as defined in 302.116, are defined as any location where they're raising, grooming, caring for the boarding of dogs, cats, or other small animals is for commercial purposes is carried on. As for discussion purposes, staff has drafted the following conditions. Number 1 would be the business shall be limited to grooming of dogs only. No overnight boarding or breeding or training permitted. No more than a total of 3 dogs is allowed on the property at any one time. And the hours of operation for the grooming services shall be limited to 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. I think those, I apologize, but I think those might be slightly different than the ones that are in your package. And so I would refer to the ones that are in your package. It says dogs and or cats. And that just gives a little bit of flexibility in the future. The current plans don't include any cat operations, if I recall correctly, but will allow for that flexibility if needed in the future. With that, I'd like to turn the, it says 5 in there. Okay, I apologize, but the other correction from my presentation to the motion or the ordinance that is in front of you, or the conditions, is the hours of operation for the grooming service shall be limited to 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So in addition to cats and or dogs is how it states in the draft conditions in front of you, the limited hours would be from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. With that, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn the floor over to Ms. Height. Mr. or Mrs. Height, or both, to answer any questions or review additional details, answering questions that may arise.
Welcome.
So do y'all have anything to add to the presentation, or just answering questions?
We were assuming maybe y'all would have some questions for us. We don't have any for you.
You don't seem to be wanting to do cats at this time, but
No, sir.
we'll allow you to do that. So, anybody have any questions or?
I have a question about the hours. 6 made sense to me because I'm thinking people get off work at 5 and they'd come pick up their dog after that. Do you need that flexibility, or you think 5 is fine?
I think 5 is fine. It's going to be a very small grooming business. I have a full-time job.
Okay.
So I'm talking maybe 2 or 3 dogs like on a Saturday. I off one day during the week. It's just something very small, just to make some extra money on the side. It's something I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think.
So will there be 3 dogs, up to 3 dogs at a time there, or you think you're just going to have 1 at a time? So you don't have a kennel. You're not going to be keeping some dogs in a kennel on the property while you're working with another dog?
If there is someone who has 2 dogs in the family, I do have a kennel.
I was gonna say, I've
that
got
cage
3 dogs in my family,
Okay.
so, I didn't know. Yeah.
that's available,
Yeah.
for that dog to stay until they're picked up, but
Uh-huh.
no more than.
So your kennel, you have the kennels are indoors, like where you would keep the other dogs while you're working on the one. If I brought my 3 dogs, you'd have 2 in the kennels and 1 that you're working with. Okay.
So just to add on that question, Ms. Hennis, the written description says operate Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And so, and it doesn't mention anything about cats. So just in association, being consistent with other applications and provide them the flexibility in the future, we sort of
Right.
took some liberties to increase the number of pets allowed on the property, the type of pets, and the hours of operation.
Right,
Just
you
to
may
allow
decide you wanna
that
do
for
it
that
full
type
time.
of
Forget the
for
other
that
job.
type of flexibility.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, any other discussion?
What is surrounding your property? I mean, from the GIS, it looks like it's
Says here.
just
it's,
woods, right?
Farm and forest.
Woods and a
What's your
farm.
closest neighbor?
Nelson Kraushorn, off the Bowden Grant,
How far is that?
half a mile from the Red Barn.
Okay, great, okay, good deal, thank you. So, do we have any other discussion or?
Good. I don't think there's any other discussion. Anybody want to make a motion?
Okay. So I'll make a motion that the planning commission recommend.
Sorry, we need to open the public hearing.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry, Woo, we're just getting right on with it. Woo.
We're ready to move this meeting on here. Okay, so we will open the, at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
Yes, sir.
If not, we'll proceed to taking comments by way of computer and phones. It's time I'll ask staff if there are any citizens that would like to make comments
Let me
from
look.
Zoom.
There are no pending question and answers. I think we don't have any attendees. Let me check one more time. No, sir. No one signed up to speak.
Okay, no one on the phone either. Okay, so if we, no further comments, the public hearing is now closed on this matter.
Now we'll call.
Now we'll go. I make a motion that the planning commission recommend to the board of supervisors that the special exception permit for Carrie K. Height to operate a pet grooming business in the agricultural and general uses A2 district per LDR section 603.03-5 at 32 Wet Bear Lane, Fairfield, Virginia, identified as tax map number 40-A-25A in the South River Magisterial District, be approved with the following conditions. 1, the business shall be limited to grooming of dogs and or cats. 2, no overnight boarding, breeding, or training permitted. 3, no more than a total of 3 dogs and or cats allowed on the property at one time for grooming. 4, the hours of operation for the grooming service shall be limited to Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
We have a motion,
Second.
a second, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, now we'll move on to the Holocene Clean Energy on Walker's Creek Road.
Yes, bear with me once again. I'm going to share my screen to do a very short presentation before I turn it over to the applicants. Bear with me here. I got to find this one. All right, this is the agenda item, Holocene Clean Energy application for a special exception permit to modify the fencing and landscaping plan of a approved special exception permit condition. The property the area zoning map. The property is located and surrounded by the agricultural and general use districts. That's the A2 districts, and it's identified as tax map number 36-A-65. The property is owned by Kenneth and Susan Moeller and consists of 92.28 acres per tax records. The special exception permit for the 2.5 megawatt AC solar project was approved by the Board of Supervisors on January 27th, 2020. And the purpose of this application is to modify the landscaping plan and the fencing plan. Again, under review tonight is the proposed modifications for the fencing plan and landscaping plan. The modification of the landscaping plan is at the request of the property owner, Mr. Malcolm Brownlee. The landscaping plan has been modified. The landscaping plan has been modified to remove a strip of plantings on the Brownlee property. The Brownlee property is located 130 Walkers Creek Road, Rockbridge, Mass, Virginia 24473, and is further identified as tax map number 36-A-65B. When the special exception plan was approved, the plan included a strip of plantings on the Brownlee property. In order to ensure that the plantings could be planted and maintained for the life of the project, the developer has requested the developer requested a landscaping easement on the Brownlee property. And so when we approved the original special exception permit, it obviously included landscaping on the Brownlee property. We, Rockbridge County, weren't concerned on how they did that, how they maintained that, how they planted the plantings, but it just had to be done. So in this case, the developer required a long-term easement. So Mr. Brownlee was reluctant to have that encumbrance on the property. His concerns included the markability of the property and future landowners' wishes for that section of the property. According to the developer and Mr. Brownlee, the plantings will be implemented as shown on the previously approved plan, but would not be associated with the special exception permit, meaning that Mr. and Mrs. Brownlee could allow for the plantings to be implemented, and the future landowners could keep the plantings or remove them if they desire to utilize this portion of the property for another use. As shown on the revised landscaping plan, all other landscaping plan is on the Moeller property, and the developer has a formal landscaping easement with Mr. and Mrs. Moeller. Per the modification to the fencing plan, the previously approved plan had a chain link fence with green vinyl slats. During the discussion with the Planning Commission, the slats were removed as part of the conditions associated with the special exception permit. However, the green slats were not removed from the site plan. In addition to the modification for the slats, the developer has requested a change of the type of fencing shown from a previously approved 6-foot chain link fence with barbed wire to the proposed 6-foot fixed knot fence with barbed wire. And of course, in your package, in the package for tonight's meeting, you have the revised landscaping plan showing the modifications, and you have a picture of the proposed fence as shown on this display. As far as the proposed conditions for discussion purposes, it would be substantial compliance with the site plan and landscaping plan prepared by Perkins and Orison PLC, dated October 25th, 2019, and revised December 2nd, 2019, January 5th, 2020, January 28th, 2020, and the latest revision under review this evening is June 18th, 2021, on file in the office of the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Number 2 is the maximum height of the tilt for the solar array shall be 15 feet. Number 3, the landscaping shall be maintained in healthy condition for the life of the project. And finally, number 4, acceptance of a decommissioning agreement incorporating the decommissioning plan dated August 26, 2019, in lieu of a bond, but which shall be reevaluated every 5 years. With that, I'd like to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Mr. Russ Orson for further review.
Chris did a great job of summarizing it. It's only those 2 changes to the plan. I do want to clarify that the fence will be total 7 feet, at least 7 feet with the barbed wire, and 6 feet of the woven wire fence, and then barbed wire. The electric code does require 7 feet total of fence around the facility. But that's it. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Why go to the woven wire from the chain link?
I don't know.
I think it looks better.
I like it.
I like it a lot better.
I like it a lot better
I like
too.
it a
Looks
lot
like it
better.
fits better out
And,
there.
just the client changed what they wanted to do.
in discussion with the, in discussions with the applicant, they just, in a more rural area, they like to try to use a more, what we call woven wire fence, fixed knot woven wire fence, just in keeping with the surrounding agricultural community in a more rural area was the rationale.
Well, and when we took out the slats, we're not worried about screening it, which obviously, if you're not going to do that, that was a better looking fence.
If you're looking for security, though, chain link's gonna be hard to climb. I can climb across any height. Woven wire fence you got with a barbed
We're
wire.
gonna try and get the barbed wire to keep you out.
You're going to do it.
We'll tilt it or something.
You got Mr. Moeller living across the street too, so.
He's a good
I'm
shot.
just making a statement.
I got it.
And if you're doing for security, if we're just putting it up to keep the cattle out, it doesn't make any difference. But if it's security, you need chain link.
You think chain link isn't easy to climb? I mean, easier?
Not as easy as
Really?
woven wire.
I guess I haven't tried to climb any woven
But
wire
especially
lately.
with barbed wire on top of it,
Okay.
on a chain link. Chain link on top of woven wire, I'll go across that like squirrels and a lot of other people will.
Okay.
That's my opinion on that one. If it's security, you gotta stick with chain link. It looks, whatever.
Any other discussion from Mr. Orson?
Just a question on condition number 2. Is that a new one from the last time?
Uh,
I don't recall that.
No, sir. Well, bear
remember
with me
it.
here. Number
Same.
2, no, sir. That was it. The only modification to the conditions are adding actually 3 dates. It'd be the January 15th, January 28th, and the June 18th. But really the January 15th, if I recall correctly, was some ENS concerns, and then the 28th was VDOT, did not change the substantial compliance. But then the June 18th, 2021 is sort of what's on the table this evening as far as the changes with the proposed fencing and the proposed landscaping, removing that portion of the landscaping physically from the plan. Again, it will be planted, on the ground, but just not shown on the plan.
I have a question about the decommissioning agreement versus having a bond. I mean, is that tying them to doing, what if they go away? We don't have a bond. We don't have any money to,
We talked about it before. It was generally accepted. I'm no expert on it, but it was generally accepted that the salvage value of the facility exceeded the
what it would cost
cost
to
of
decommission.
decommissioning. So if that were to change, I think a bond would be more important.
Mhm.
But as long as the salvage value is more than what it costs to take it down, if somebody goes away, somebody will want
Right.
to take it down.
Well, I know how we're not doing recycling as much because people aren't paying as much. And, so I just have some concerns down the road, maybe we're going to have that same problem. And
So ironically enough that we've, of course, later on this agenda, we're having the solar ordinance discussion. And that's something that Mr. Busso, Ms. Huffman, and myself have discussed a lot lately. However, with this particular project, because of the advertisement, we are limited to modifying the landscaping and the fencing plan only. But that's a good question. And we sort of tackled that issue since the approval of this since the original January approval of this project.
okay.
If there are no other questions, so we'll go ahead with the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Orson.
Thank you.
At this time, we're going to open the public hearing. If there's anybody physically present who would like to speak.
No, sir.
Okay, if not, we'll proceed to the computer and phone. Is there anybody on Zoom or telephone?
No, sir. Let me check my question and answers real quick. No, sir. There are no attendees, and there are no open question and answers.
Okay, well, with no further comments, the public hearing is now closed on this matter. And bring it back to the commission. Anybody have
That's my
anything?
question.
I'm back on the fence is where I'm at. As far as security goes, and if we're worried about looks, why do we approve a solar panel field in the middle of a agriculture district? It's a solar panel field or array.
Mhm.
So it's not gonna look like any cow Kenny's got over there, or any cow anybody else got around a cornfield. So a chain link fence is certainly ain't gonna hurt, in my opinion, as far as security goes. I'm not gonna have to ride by and look at it. Some of y'all might, but I won't, so. That's me.
I'm guessing that's why the fence is there, is just security to keep people from being over around the The solar array, right?
I think safety and security. Yes, ma'am. I believe so.
That's gonna be more secure, in my opinion.
Okay.
Now granted, the cost of a woven wire fence is gonna be significantly lower than a woven wire fence. That's saving the.
And I did address the safety concerns or the security concerns with the applicant, and his comment that it was if someone wants to get in there, they're going to get in there with a pair of wire cutters, regardless of the type of fence. And just wanted to relay that portion of the conversation as well.
Okay.
But I do agree with Mr. Lucas's comments.
Any other comments? Call for a question. Promotion.
I'm looking on here. I mean, there's nothing on here none of these conditions talk about changing the fence.
That would be associated with the site plan. Because the substantial compliance, number one, includes the site plan. The site plan has been revised to show
got it.
the woven wire, or what I call a woven wire fence.
So if you want to call for I mean, if we're basically going to make a motion, but we want to change it, we want to leave it as a chain link fence, how do we do that? Basically,
If it's a consensus of the planning commission that's the desire of the planning commission, you could just instruct that verbally, and of course we could work with the applicant, or in this case Mr. Orson, to revise the revised site plan to reflect it back to a chain link fence.
okay. So do you want me to make the motion and
Sure.
put the language in there? So I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the amended special exception permit for Holocene Clean Energy to develop a solar project on property located on the east side of Walker's Creek Road, Route 602, identified as tax map number 36-A-65 in the General Agricultural A2 zoning district, to modify the conditions related to landscaping plan and the fencing plan, be approved as follows. 1, substantial compliance with the site plan and landscape plan prepared by Perkins and Orison, dated October 25th, 2019, and revised December 2nd, 2019, January 15th, 2020, January 28th, 2020, and June 18th, 2021. And I guess, and a future site plan to be,
With modifications reverting back to a chain link fence.
Okay,
Without
all right.
slats would be a good
okay.
portion. of
So June 18th, 2021, without slats on the fencing and reverting back to the chain link fence. And all these are on file in the office of the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. The maximum height of the tilt for the solar array shall be 15 feet. Landscaping shall be maintained in healthy condition for the life of the project. Acceptance of decommissioning agreement incorporating decommissioning plan dated August 26, 2019, in lieu of a bond, but which shall be reevaluated every 5 years.
We have a motion.
Second.
He second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Mr. Moeller, did you have your hand up back there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I did. I choose not to speak.
If you could come up, just speak in the microphone, that way we can hear you on the YouTube.
Good evening. I choose not to speak. I am quite shocked. Being in the country, a woven wire fence is better than a prison fence, in my opinion. And our neighbors had shared that they didn't approve of the prison fence, but if that's what was needed, that's what's needed. If it's a prison fence, we understand it, but it's a solar panel. I don't think anybody's going to steal a solar panel, because what are they going to do with it? But again, it's my opinion that in the country, it's going to look better if we put something that's normal on a farm. I praise you for taking the green strips or whatever strips out of the fence. But if you ride by Hollandale, it is what it is. My opinion, again, is a rural agriculture fence. Want to keep the deer out, keep the cows out. If somebody wants to put a ladder and go over the top, so be it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we we have a motion. It's been seconded,
All voted.
all voted. So
That's what it
there'll
is.
be 4 in favor and one nay. That'll be me.
And you were an A,
I was a nay.
I was a nay. I didn't verbally say yay or nay.
so that was 3 yeses,
3 yea and
2
2 nays.
noes.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So the motion carries. Next on the agenda is the Buffalo Creek Foundation on 34 Steeles Fort Loop.
Yes, once again, bear with me here. I'm going to try to get this presentation up. All right. In attendance, we have Mr. and Mrs. Mr. Lee Taylor and Miss Rebecca Taylor with the Buffalo Creek Foundation. This is an application for a special exception permit for a private school in the agricultural transitional zoning district. Going over the zoning map of the area the property is located in and surrounded by the agricultural transitional zoning district, that'd be the AT zoning district, in the pink. The white on the map is the agricultural and general use district, the, again, white, and the gray to the north is the industrial, general industrial zoning district. The BJB Properties LLC parcel is outlined in orange and is further identified as tax map number 40-1-1, 155.26 acres per tax records. The Buffalo Creek Foundation has made an application for a special exception permit to operate a private school on proposed lot of 34.86 acres in the transitional zoning district per section 603B.03-17 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. Private schools are used by special exception in the AT zoning district. The property is located at 2440 Rafine Road, Rafine, Virginia. And again, it's currently owned by BJB Properties LLC. The school is proposed to be located on 34-acre portion of the existing tract. Phase 1 includes 2 classroom buildings for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders with a total of 36 students. While the portion of the property is located within the 100-year flood overlay zone, the classrooms will be located outside of the 100-year flood hazard zone. Phase 2 would include 2 additional classroom buildings for high school students. The enclosed schematic plan is for Phase 1. The current special exception permit would be for Phase 1. For discussion purposes, the planning staff has drafted the following conditions: substantial compliance with the schematic site plan showing Buffalo Creek Foundation dated June 10th, 2021, on file with the clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Number 2, all new structures will be located out of the 100-year flood zone. Number 3, all new development will be serviced by public water and public sewer. Number 4, total number of students not to exceed 36. And number 5, approval contingent on VDOT, Health Department, Building Department, and Department of Educational approvals. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. and Mrs. Taylor to review additional details, give you some updates on their latest conversation with the Department of Transportation as far as the proposed entrance, and review the other details of the project.
Chris. Please, the commission. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lee Taylor, here with the Buffalo Creek Foundation, and again, I think Chris has done an excellent job of summarizing this. This is the old Drawbond Farm, 150-acre farm, historic property located between Steeles Fort Road and I-81. The old rock home on the property, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this area, but there's a rock home built in 1755, I believe. And it's in really good condition for restoration. It has not been gutted and remodeled with modern day materials. So it's really an exciting property, and we're excited about the prospect of locating a school on that property. The property is really ideally suited for the school because of the layout of the property. It's an agricultural property. I don't know if any of you have heard of Buffalo Creek Boys School, currently located out toward Collierstown on Mateer Road. It was approved by the commission about 4.5 years ago, I believe. And we've had tremendous success with the students. We've had tremendous success with the outdoor activities of the school. The focus is largely outdoor and agricultural. So this property is really well suited for that. There's a lot of water on the property, and we are exploring and planning on doing a fisheries program, which we would be able to do our science and math through a fisheries program. So there's really and as you can see on one of the, I guess the site plan there in your package, there are a couple of ponds already there on the property, which we hope to develop, and have had some interest from experts willing to help us out in that regard. The property is also very well situated from the standpoint of its location. We're excited about being on the north end of the county. It is very convenient to I-81 and Highway 11. Steels Fort Road is a rural road, and we met this week with Alvin Trout for the second time out at the property with VDOT. He's the area engineer, and he has suggested that the Moores Creek Road, or the Moores Trail Road, is really a more attractive way to get into the property because of a couple of reasons. One, the primary buildings, the structures will be located on the southerly end of the property, as you can see there from the plan. And on the northerly end of the property, you have Moores Creek that runs right down near the roadway, and that's all that property is in the floodplain. And if any of you are familiar with the Mateer Road property, we have unfortunately had to cancel school more than once for flooding. And we really are looking for a place that we can get in and out without having to cancel school or make alternative plans when the water's up. But the conversation with Mr. Trout, he was confident that by adding a little bit of additional gravel to the surface of the existing right-of-way on Moores Trail, that it would be passable by two vehicles meeting each other, that it would support the traffic that would be anticipated for the first phase of this, certainly, and even for the second phase, which is in our application, would be up to 84 students, but that's a good ways down the road. So Mr. Trout was very encouraging in being able to get an entrance on Moores Trail. So we are very much excited about that. I am, certainly have spoken to some of the neighbors in the area. There is some concern about traffic. Living in a rural area, we all know that you don't want any more traffic on your roads than you already have. But I believe that the taking the traffic off of Steels Fort and actually making the primary entrance on Moores Trail will really alleviate any slowdowns or stopping or problems with backups. Not that we're going to have that much traffic anyway, but I believe that the Moores Trail entrance would provide a much more attractive way in and out of that property. And as you come in off Moores Trail, you go over the high point of the property. You see the Blue Ridge Mountains off to the east, and the property kind of lays out in a half bowl below you. So it's really the most attractive and most well-suited entrance from the standpoint of just having a road that's going to be passable and easily maintained. So I'm happy to answer questions that any of you may have at this time.
What's your anticipated date when you want to be opening?
Well, at this point, we have just this year moved to a transitional location, and our plan is to be there 2 years. I don't think we would start construction for the next year. We're still in a planning phase. The site plan you have is a very rough site plan that will be updated. And of course, we would come back and present that when we get more information. But I don't believe we would anticipate starting before the 2023-24 school year, which would, mean construction at the earliest, probably 2022.
The existing entrance to that property isn't really good at all. It sits right there on a curve. And
It's a
pretty
very
dangerous.
dangerous. Matter of fact, we looked at that. It's in the curve. You can't get sight distances in either direction. The neighbors across the street, the Gerhardts, were concerned about that. Ms. Gerhardt was born in that house, interestingly. And she said that there was always trouble getting in and out of their driveway. And there have been some terrible wrecks right there on Steels Fort Road, she says. So,
You're looking at abandoning that and just having one entrance in, doing away with that?
well, I don't know that we would abandon it. It might be an entrance for, it would not be the main school entrance. It may be an agricultural entrance. We're going to have the agricultural use down on that end of the property. We would hope not to abandon that, but that certainly would not be the way we would come and go with school traffic. As a farm, you don't want to have just one entrance.
Well, I understand. I know how it is with the entrances though. When you're sitting here and you got 3 ways into place, everybody's going to use all 3 ways, even if the sign says
Well,
don't
the
use it.
students would not. And there won't be any way to get up to the classrooms from that, for that.
With
part of the
this
campus.
rough plan you got, it is, so you can drive around anywhere you want to go there. So that's all I've got to look at. So,
Are you still looking at that northern entrance as well?
That is the one that would be in the floodplain and crossing Moores Creek. Mr. Trout was confident that one or the other of the entrances would work, but he is leaning more toward the Moores Trail entrance at this point.
Would you abandon, if you went with the Moores Trail, would you abandon that?
Probably would not pursue the one off of Steels Fort.
Any other questions for Mr. Taylor?
from a safety standpoint, I'd like to see that one in the curve go. I'd put another entrance in further around, further north. I'm familiar with the property, so I drive by it 2 times, 3 times a week. So go on up around the curve there a little bit where you got better sight distance, and then put something in. I would look at that. I mean, just from a safety standpoint, because I know how kids are and I know how people are. If they can get in out of that entrance, they're going to go, and that's a shortcut for somebody. They're going to go, and if it's not spiked, gated, or closed and locked, they're going to be going in there. I would, so I know they would. So
it becomes one lane right over the bridge. So I foresee us during pickup and drop off, just putting big cones there, like they can come in and knock over that. It's literally a 1-lane little bridge. So we just block that off on our morning and afternoon pickup, and that's the only time we're going to have massive, or if it's events, we would block that off. So I don't see people wouldn't get across it. It's a creek.
I just look at it from safety. That's all. I'm surprised.
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Creighton says so.
Oh, I know at the high school, they have that, just have sawhorses across one of the junior lot, and that keeps kids follow that. No
But this
problem.
would be part of your second phase of the program before you even had high school students driving to the facility, correct? That would be
Well,
phase 2.
We do not even anticipate high school students driving. So our high school students would not drive to school, is our plan.
Our plan for parking or any of that, then you got to deal with all that.
Right.
Okay.
So the only students that would be coming to the school would be picked up and delivered by parents
We
or
plan to have
guardians.
a bus that would pick up in central Lexington, so that would cut down the traffic quite a bit. I think a lot of people would use the bus, and of course, the bus is only going to go in the approved entrance.
Any plans for boarding eventually?
Oh, absolutely not.
whole different ballgame.
Do you have
We've got our
plans
hands
to,
full already, thank you.
do you have plans to operate year round?
You know, there may be some activities in the summer, but the school will operate just on a regular school basis. You know, there's some thought of using the facility for a craft, some sort of a craft event, but education, there will be, you know, plenty of, we're gonna have a pottery, woodworking shop, things that, you know, that may lend themselves to doing something in the summer, but no, not school.
Primarily serves just Rockbridge and now Augusta, based on the siting in the northern part of the county.
Yeah, so.
Elementary.
Oh, well, at this point, it's middle school only.
Right.
We did fifth grade this past year, but that was a little tough. So we're going to stick with sixth, seventh, and eighth for now. So and I'm
Do you
sure
look for your
Mr.
numbers to
McLaughlin-
grow with the virtual learning of the private? I mean, going from the virtual learning with students not going back to school. Do you look for your numbers to raise
We
more
did
than?
last year. We reached the maximum enrollment for the facility at Collierstown, and you know, praise the Lord. And we certainly hope to this year with our new location to be able to accept more students. We certainly can, and then you know, we just pray that it'll continue to grow.
Personally like what you're doing from a number of perspectives as an educator, etc. All right. Are there any other questions? Then we need to open up the public hearing. Okay, so we'll now open up the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
No, sir.
Is there anybody on electronically?
I forgot to stop sharing my screen. I apologize about that. No, sir. Oop, hold on. We have actually one person that's an attendee on a Galaxy S10e, according to our Zoom here. And so if you would like to make a public comment for the Buffalo Creek Foundation, please raise your hand, use the raise your hand tool. Not seeing any. Turn it back over to the chair.
Okay, if there are none, then we will close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Russo. Before we close the public hearing, I do have two written comments that came in. I
Okay.
apologize. Thank
So
you, sir.
we'll reopen, or
Sorry.
we didn't close.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That was
Number one, I do have two written comments that were mailed in. These were emailed to the individuals, to all the planning commission members this afternoon. But in addition, because they were coming in as the Rockbridge County Planning Commission citizen comment email address, we do read them during the public hearings. With that, number one is dated July 12th, 2021, addressed to the members of the Rockbridge County Planning Commission. Buffalo Creek Foundation request for a Buffalo special exception permit at 31 Steels Fort Loop for the purpose of establishing a private boys' school. As an owner of 5-acre property immediately to the south of Moore's Trail on the west side of Steels Fort Road and north side of Route 11, I want to register my deep concerns about the project. When I purchased this property nearly 36 years ago, the area was quiet and very rural. During the years I've lived here, buildings have increased and traffic has grown considerably, especially on Steels Fort Road since the truck stops and have expanded. A clinic, doctor's office, and dental offices have been added. The Beulah land has already purchased land east of Steels Fort Road and soon plans to begin another building another nursing home. In the late 90s, Steels Fort was widening and I lost 1 acre plus of land to that project. The proposed plans I have read for the 36.86 acres call for possible entrance to be built along Moore's Trail, a very narrow road which crosses a small bridge at the creek. It seems probable to me that this would necessitate another road widening project. I strongly object to losing more of my land. Even if access is limited to one entrance on Steels Fort Road, the traffic bringing initially 36 students plus faculty, maintenance, etc., and later as planned up to 84 students will increase noise congestion beyond what this area can handle or should have to handle. I therefore request that the special exception permit request be denied. Thank you. Addressed from Susan B. Coleman Crouchhorn, 57 Steels Fort Road, Rafine, Virginia, 24472. The second comment that we received via the Planning Commission comment email address is addressed to the Rockbridge County Planning Commission and the Rockbridge County Board of Supervisors. It states, my husband and I live at 162 Steels Fort Road, which is directly across from 31 Steels Fort Loop, the property being discussed. My siblings and I own the named property prior to selling to BJB Properties LLC in 2019, having inherited from my parents upon their passing. My husband and I have lived at our present house, our present address since 1975, building on part of the original Steels Fort farm property. I give you this information to emphasize our knowledge of the area. My vision for the property of my childhood home would not have included it to be used for a private school facility since we will be living across the road. However, we recently talked to Mr. and Mrs. Taylor about their plans and have somewhat better feeling about it at this time. We do, however, have great concern about the increase of traffic that it will bring to the area and already a very busy road. We also understand that there are plans for Mr. Bender, owner of Blue Ridge Christian Homes Beulah Land Campus, to build a housing development in the area adjacent to our property, which will result in even more traffic on Steels Fort Road. With more traffic comes the greater possibility of injury or death due to accidents because of the excessive speed that is allowed to continue without law enforcement. I witness the speeding every day. That includes both local traffic and out-of-town traffic occurring with the overflow of I-81. Steels Fort Road is a crossroad from the US 11 to I-81 in Rafine and heavily traveled with everything from farm tractors to big logging trucks and 18-wheelers, etc. We ask that the enforcement of the proposed speed, some enforcement of posted speed be done in order to discourage speeding, especially on the dangerous curve in front of our house. Thank you for consideration, Dorothy and Gary Gearhart. That is all the comments we have received via email.
Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion?
We can now close the public hearing.
Now we close the public hearing. Thank you.
And so for discussion purposes, again, I would like to read the original 5 proposed conditions and address or suggest, if you will, for discussion purposes, 3 more based on our conversation. Substantial compliance with schematic site plan Buffalo Creek Foundation dated June 10th, 2021 on file with the clerk of the courts for board of supervisors. Number 2, all new structures be located out of the 100-year flood hazard zone. Number 3, all new development will be serviced by public water and sewer. Number 4, the total number of students not to exceed 36. Number 5, approval contingent on VDOT, Health Department, Building Department, and Department of Educational approval. Number 6, school be limited to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Number 7, bridge to be closed during all school operations. Number 8, plan to be implemented within 2 years of date of approval. Again, for discussion purposes, I thought I'd add 6, 7, and 8. 7 was bridge to be closed during school operations.
That's on the main entrance
That would be the private bridge. I'm sorry, I added private bridge to be closed during school operations for clarification. That's along.
And that would be the original or the
That's correct.
current
Yes, sir.
entrance right now. And what was the last one?
The last one was that
Plan to be implemented within
Okay.
2 years.
To be implemented.
date of approval. And again, those are for discussion purposes.
Is that reasonable with your timing?
Of course, we can come back as develop further plans like that. We'll be coming back with additional site plan.
think it's important too to reiterate that we're looking at right now, just talking about 36 students. We're not talking about 84 students. That's a new, you'd have to come back to us again for that. So, and I think by that point, we'll have some data about how the traffic's going and all those kinds of things as well.
Well, that area is increasing. There's a lot of development out that way with the truck stop. So it is transitioning right now.
So one thing I would like to update the board on that Mr. Taylor and I discussed, and then a follow-up conversation with Mr. Trout, is there potentially could be some required improvements to Morse Trail itself from the intersection of Steels Fort Road to, of course, the proposed entrance. And so that would be handled. While we don't know what those proposed entrance at this date, we don't know, I think it's a correct statement of what those proposed improvements would entail. This approval, obviously per condition number five, I believe it is approval contingent upon VDOT. That if you want to address the commission on y'all's conversation on what proposed improvements would be, may be a beneficial conversation.
Those of you that have been up Morse Trail, it's 2 lanes to the bridge.
Yeah, can you step in and use the microphone just for the, thank you.
Morse Trail is 2 lanes to a bridge. It's, I guess, a couple of culverts cast in cement. And then it goes down to what I call a 1-lane road, although 2 cars could probably pass, but not very easily. So Mr. Trout has suggested that there's plenty of right-of-way. So there's, I appreciate Ms. Coleman Kraushorn's comments, but there would be no anticipation that there would be any additional right-of-way needed. There's plenty of surface on the road. There's just 1 lane of gravel. So it would be adding additional gravel. And the suggestion was that the property owner pay the cost of putting the gravel on to make
that was my next question is who incurs the cost for the upgraded road?
At this point, it sounds like we may.
Okay. Well, and I have every confidence VDOT, they're not going to put something dangerous in there. I mean, they're going to make sure it meets all the requirements, to be safe, especially with a school and kids being there. Okay.
The only problem I got with it's the existing entrance, the ability to still use it. I like the school idea, don't have a problem with that. Like I say, all heard's good with what you've done at Colliertown.
But VDOT's going to be looking at that as well, right? I mean, that's their opportunity to say, hey, we need to get rid of that because it's too dangerous. Let's move it over here, right? I mean,
well, it doesn't sound, from my conversations with Mr. Taylor and Mr. Trout, it does not sound that is part of the conversation at this point to close any existing entrances. Mm-hmm. Of course, it would be per VDOT's regulations, it could not be used as a commercial entrance. Enforcement on that is limited due to VDOT staff, obviously. With that being said, number 7 could alleviate those concerns that the bridge the private bridge to be closed during school operations.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. Anybody else?
So, no. You ready to?
If we're gonna say closed, it needs to be gated. As far as gating that bridge somehow on one or another, gated. That closes it. If you just say the bridge is closed, or you can't use this as entrance, I know how it works.
So you're proposing bridge be gated, closed?
And gated is you can make a 1-bar gate kind of deal, let it swing around, something pretty simple. You can drop a lock in like that.
I think there's already a bar there.
Yeah, that can be locked or shut and changed where somebody can't just open it. Still got your entrance for your agricultural type use if you want to, that's available for y'all to use, but then you're limiting access to it for everybody else.
So that would be revised to state private bridge to be closed and gated during all school operations.
Got it. You guys ready for me to read all this? All right. I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit to develop and operate a private school in the agricultural transition AT zoning district per LDR section 603B.03-17 on approximately 34.86 acres located at 31 Steels Fort Loop, identified as a portion of tax map 40-1-1 in the South River Magisterial District, be approved with the following conditions. 1, substantial compliance with the schematic site plan Buffalo Creek Foundation dated June 10th, 2021, on file in the office of the clerk to the Board of Supervisors. 2, all new structures to be located outside the 100-year hazard zone, flood hazard zone. 3, all new development to be serviced by public water and sewer. 4, total number of students not to exceed 36. 5, approval contingent on VDOT, Health Department, Building Department, and Department of Education approvals. 6, school shall be limited to 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 7, private bridge to be closed and gated during school operations. Is that right?
During all school operations,
During
but
all
yes,
school
ma'am.
operations. And 7, plan to be implemented within 2 years of the date of approval.
On number 6, did we have 36 students in there, limit of 36?
I did, it was 4.
Now,
Number
six,
four. Okay, number 4. I'm
Sixth,
sorry,
seventh,
got
and
it.
eighth graders, y'all, when you said you did fifth graders this year, is that something you want to do, is fifth graders again?
That's not in our immediate plans, but
Okay, we just want to make sure we didn't miss it, so.
at this point, I think 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
Okay. A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion unanimous and motion carries. Okay, moving on now to Karen and John Siegfried at 55 Kennedy Wade's Mill Loop.
All right. Ms. Siegfried is in attendance this evening. Bear with me here. I'm going to share my screen one more time. All right, the next agenda item, Siegfried Holdings LLC, application for a special exception permit event venue in the agricultural and general use district. The property is surrounded and located, is in and surrounded by the A2 zone, and is further identified as tax map number 27-1-1B. As far as the special exception permit itself, Karen and John Siegfried Holdings LLC has made an application for a special exception permit to operate special events on the venue on Wade's Mill property, the property known as Wade's Mill. The property is owned by Siegfried Holdings LLC and is located at 55 Kennedy Wade's Mill Loop, Rafine, Virginia. Per section 603.03-24 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, special events are used by special exception. For discussion purposes, the staff has proposed the following conditions for discussion purposes. Number 1, substantial compliance with this concept plan prepared by the applicant. Number 2, events shall be limited to a maximum of 200 attendees. Number 3, all sites activities will be concluded by 11 p.m. Number 4, adequate off-street parking facilities and traffic controls will be provided. No parking along Kennedy Wade's Mill Loop, and I apologize for the misspelling there, Route 618, nor Rafine Road 606. Number 5, alcohol beverages will not be self-served. Number 6, all trash shall be taken directly to the landfill and not county collection centers or county green boxes. Number 7, any amplified music must be within an enclosed structure and concluded by 11 p.m. Number 8, all lighting shall be in compliance with 1303 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. Number 9, no aerial fireworks shall be permitted. No outdoor fires shall be permitted by attendees. Number 10, approval contingent upon County Building Department, Virginia Department of Transportation, and Health Department approvals. With that, I'd like to turn this portion of the presentation to Ms. Karen Siegfried to review additional details on the project and answer any questions that the Planning Commission may have.
I apologize. I come a little bit unprepared. I was in Charlottesville this afternoon on some deliveries to customers, and there was a crash on Afton Mountain. So I sat in the mountain for about an hour that I hadn't prepared for this afternoon. So I don't have my paperwork with me, but I do have it on my phone. So I just, I guess we tried to give as much information as possible in the packet that we prepared. But I think for us, we've really come to realize in our 5 years now of owning the property what an important role an historic role the mill has played in the community, and we get a lot of visitors coming back to the mill who were either relatives going back to the Kennedys, the founders of the mill, or doing their genealogical research, or people who've grown up in the area. The mill served as a bus stop at one point. We hear wonderful stories all the time from people coming in and talking about the mill. And in fact, after I submitted the application, about 2 weeks ago, Charlie Wade, who was the last, the fourth generation of the Wade ownership of the mill, and the last Wade Miller, stopped by with his one of his cousins who had actually, she lived at the mill for the first 3 years of her life, and then spent summers, came back every summer. And she told me that they, as kids, she said every single weekend in the summer, there were weddings, both Saturdays and Sundays, on the lawn from the mill, and all the kids would sit out on the mill on the water wheel platform and watch the weddings, which I thought was a lovely story of the role, again, the role of the mills played in the community. So I think we've invested a lot of effort in maintaining and improving the mill. Initially, primarily just as a tourist site and to welcome visitors back. But increasingly, I suppose, as we've improved the property, we've had more and more interest in people asking if it's available for events, and particularly during the pandemic, when events were limited to outdoor events, we certainly had a lot of requests for people who were scrambling, hoping to hold a wedding or a reception, and their plans had been changed because of the pandemic. So that prompted us to consider making the property available as a special events venue. We are very aware and respectful of the historic nature of the property, so we don't envision becoming, the main business of the mill will never become an events venue. The milling business is our primary business, and a tourist attraction as well. So we intend to keep the event side of the business very rustic, and that's why we are proposing initially just a tent venue. Some of that also came out from, we took advice when we started thinking about developing the property for special events. We took advice from Sue Ann and George Hugie at Southern Inn. They're one of our wholesale customers that we sell our product to, but we knew they had a catering business and were very familiar with the events. So they came out and looked at the property, and our initial thought was that we might renovate the old Patterson Mill. Everyone calls it a barn, but it was actually the Patterson Mill that was relocated to the property in 1900 after the Patterson Mill shut down. So we initially thought it would make sense to renovate that structure as for event space. And Sue Ann and George, I think we appreciated their experience, and they said, you have a beautiful property here, and don't spend the money before you know you have the business. So they said, start an events venue using just the beautiful property, the flat lawn that you have, the gardens that you've built, and using tents. And then if you find there is enough interest in Wade's Mill as an event venue, then think about taking that next step to invest in restoring the old barn. So that's why our proposal is just initially to start with the more rustic tents on the lawn. And I think the 200 number that we've requested comes from mainly two things. The tents that we feel that the tent size that would be appropriate for the lawn venue, there would be two. The maximum that we could see on the lawn space would be two tents that would 100 seating tents. So that's where the 200 comes from. From my research, as far as wedding venues and special event rentals in the local and the more regional area, it does seem that for a wedding, most venues don't accommodate. I mean, the maximum is really about 150, 125 to 150. And I think that probably has a lot to do with that the wedding hosts are paying for their guests for that venue and for the food. So they're all operating on a budget. But when we were talking, we've talked, the Lexington and Rockbridge Tourism Office is very supportive of our business. So we always share our ideas with them. And so we've talked with Jean Clark early on, and I guess she shared the information with WNL and BMI, and who are always looking for alumni reunion venues. And there was interest, or we were told there was interest from those organizations potentially to use the mill for alumni events. And with alumni events, since the attendees are usually paying for themselves to attend. So that's why the larger crowd, up to 200, that was what was suggested, that if we could accommodate that number, that was why there was the 200 on there.
How many events do you anticipate in a year?
Well, our season, because we're an outdoor venue, and the mill is open between the first Saturday in April and the last Sunday before Christmas in December. So that would be our season. But realistically, I would anticipate that, April to September, April to maybe early October, and the logistics of setting up and tearing down a tent would really limit it to one event per weekend. So ideally, if we were booked every possible weekend, then you would have April, May, June, July, August, September. You'd have 6 months, maybe 4 weekends, so potentially 24 events. I think our venue will really appeal to, we don't want to be the high end. We really don't want to be wedding venues. I think we want to be a special events venue or an events venue. So we're not focusing primarily on the wedding market. We would like to include, rehearsal dinners or receptions, family reunions, family birthday parties, potentially, a graduation party. But we don't anticipate or really desire for the wedding business to be the main focus of the
What about amplified music being inside if you're going to be a tent venue? Is that
No, I think that if it's, again, in keeping with the rustic nature of the property, and we also live there, so we have moved to the farthest possible corner of the property, away from the business, to give us some separation. But it is also our home. So I think in the packet, I know the county ordinance allows music until 11, but we've said 10. And for now, in a tent venue, if amplified music is not allowed, then it would just be acoustic music. I suppose we do plan to offer tours of the mill, or have the mill available if people want to have drinks and hors d'oeuvres in the mill and a tour of the mill and then move outside. I suppose depending on the size of the party, if they really wanted to play amplified music, I'm assuming it would be allowed inside the mill structure.
Yes, ma'am.
We also have, there is the Miller's house on the property, which used to be our residence until last year. And I know that the previous owners held dinners in that house. And I suppose we could, right now it's our office and a lot of storage. I suppose, again, if somebody, depending on the size of the party, if they really wanted to have some amplified music and that we could make the Miller's house available to them right now. But I don't, again, for the nature, I think the rustic nature of the property, I think will lend itself to people who are looking for maybe a less amplified experience, if that's.
And we did, Ms. Siegfried and I had the opportunity. Usually I pride myself in communication up till the public hearing. In this case, I called her at like 5:30, I think today. I apologize on that. But we did have that discussion as far as the limitation on amplified music, and it would not pertain, we would not consider a tent as an enclosed structure. So I just want to touch base on that.
Any other questions? No. My daddy played in that when he was in the 1920s. So in the 1920s, he was one of those kids that was playing around in
the mill.
Neighbors, feedback from your neighbors?
So are the neighbors in front of us, Buffalo Springs Farm, and they own all of the property around us, even though the house up the hill from us, it's their caretakers. So, but it's still owned by Buffalo Springs. So we've discussed, they're not permanent residents. They live in Texas, and they're, Jamie is on the board of visitors at WNL, so he's here periodically. But we have discussed it with them and explained, what we're planning, and so they haven't come back to us to say we're not happy with this. In fact, their daughter got married the year we bought the mill. Their daughter got married in front of the mill, so I think they understand the beauty of the property and the interest in people doing that. And then the closest neighbors, well, the only other neighbors really up the hill from us are the caretakers for the smallest property, and they haven't voiced any. It's a young family, and I think their kids are always excited. We have had 2 private parties over the last year, just for friends who couldn't find facilities because of COVID, and they have 3 kids who wanted to come down and come to the party, and it was very exciting for them to see tents up on the property. So they haven't voiced any. There's one more house on Wade's Mill Loop, and the owners of which live in Florida, and they're not like the small. They don't even come and spend time in the property, so they're not there currently. So.
I appreciate this was very well put together. It seems like you've covered all your bases as far as talking to your insurance agent and getting letters from, the various people, VDOT and the emergency services people. So I appreciate that. It makes it a lot easier. Anything else?
discussions.
I think that's
Okay,
good.
all right. Well, we will then, if no other questions, Ms. Siegfried will go ahead and open up the public hearing. So at this time, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone physically present who would like to speak?
No, sir.
Is there anyone electronically?
Again, we do not have any question and answers open. We do have someone with a Galaxy S10e. If you would like to make public comments pertaining to the Wade's Mill application, please raise your hand now. Use your raise hand feature. Or question and answer. Not seeing any. I will turn the floor back over to the chairman.
Okay, with no other further comments, well, the public hearing is now closed. Discussion?
I think the only question I have is, do we want to add the other condition about the acoustic music? You know, non-amplified music, does that need to be in the conditions?
It's
I
number
do not
7.
believe so. I mean, it
Because it's an ordinance.
it
I mean, it's already
specifies
there.
the amplified music. So anything other than that would be prohibited outside of an enclosed
Okay,
structure.
great, okay. All right, ready? No questions?
No.
Okay. So I make a motion that the Planning Commission recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit for special events in the agricultural general A2 zoning district per LDR section 603.03-24 on property known as Wade's Mill located on the north side of Kennedy Wade's Mill Loop, Rafine, and identified as tax map number 27-1-1B in the Walkers Creek Magisterial District be approved with the following conditions. 1, substantial compliance with concept plan prepared by applicant. 2, events will be limited to a maximum of 200 attendees. 3, all site activities will be concluded by 11 p.m. 4, adequate off-street parking facilities and traffic controls will be provided. No parking along Kennedy Wade's Mill Loop, Route 816, nor Rafine Road, Route 606. 5, alcoholic beverages will not be self-served. 6, all trash shall be taken directly to the landfill and not to county collection centers or county green boxes. 7, any amplified music must be within an enclosed structure and concluded by 11 p.m. 8, lighting shall be in compliance with 1303.00 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations. 9, no aerial fireworks shall be permitted. No outdoor fire shall be permitted by attendees. 10, approval contingent on County Building Department, Virginia Department of Transportation, and Health Department approvals.
Do we have a motion? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. There are no nays. Unanimous.
Okay.
All right. We'll move on now to the American Hardwoods that was added to the agenda.
Yes, on a motion by Mr. Whitmore, we have added the discussion of log yards in the agricultural zoning district. So of course, on a couple different email correspondence pertaining to this requested zoning text amendment. The first was on June 9th, 2021, from myself to the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. And the second one would have been a follow-up from June 17th, 2021. From myself to the members of the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors. And so we have been approached by a company that is requesting a zoning text amendment for a log yard in the agricultural zoning district. So in order, what was stated in the original email, the purpose of this email was to pass along the request, provide some additional information, and explore the willingness to initiate the request of a zoning text amendment to allow for log yards in the A2 zoning district. If any member wishes to consider this request, please contact your chair of your respective board commission and ask that the consideration of the request be placed on the upcoming agenda. Of course, as always, please contact staff if you have any questions, concerns, or proposed use, etc. So in order to initiate the zoning text amendments, it's different than a rezoning request. Property owners, and in my interpretation of it, property owners have the ability property owners and contract purchasers have the ability to request a zoning map amendment, but that is different, obviously, than a zoning text amendment. So in order to initiate a zoning text amendment, it can be initiated by a resolution of intent adopted by the Board of Supervisors or by a motion adopted by the Planning Commission. With that being said, we obviously did not get it on the agenda for this evening. It's sort of an unusual process. The Board of Supervisors actually has other items for consideration or items to be added for the agenda on top of each agenda that they hold. And so we don't have that. And Mr. McLaughlin and I talked about, we don't even have other business associated with our Planning Commission agenda. So talk with Ms. Huffman of how we could proactively, if you will, have some discussion at the Planning Commission at this date. It was obviously discussed that someone could make a motion and request that it be added to the agenda. So that's where we are. With that being said, I will turn the floor over. This is to back up, we don't think it would be correct to instruct staff to take it to public hearing. We do, the next step would be to consider to make it a part of a August agenda to consider this zoning text amendment. I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, this is a time for y'all to discuss the proposal amongst yourselves, obtain a consensus of the planning commission. This is not about one particular site. Obviously, the somewhat elephant in the room is this is being propelled by one particular site, but this obviously, as described in the emails, this would be a county-wide, at minimum, in the agricultural and general use district. With that being said, of course, I've tried to do my best on correspondence with the applicant that has requested, or the contract purchaser in this case, that has requested this zoning text amendment. And I've shared all the email correspondence that I've sent to you. I've also shared with that contract purchaser. They are in the room this evening as Crown Hardwood, not necessarily to be part of the discussion at this venue, but just to observe the discussion with the planning commission. So with that being said, I'll turn the floor back over to the chair for further discussion.
Okay, anybody have, I guess one of my questions is why were log yards, if we have sawmills are part of that, and accepted by special exception, right?
That's correct. We have commercial sawmills as use by special exception in the agricultural and general district zone currently. And so I have not had an opportunity to do a lot of research on that, but as discussed today or yesterday, I can't recall when it is, I would actually, sort of off the cuff think that is due to the timing of commercial sawmills and rural locations, and this somewhat nuance, if you will, of a log yard without a sawmill being present. Obviously this portion of the zoning was incorporated in 1970s in the zoning. I feel fairly confident I can confirm this, that commercial sawmills were part of that original zoning complex or original zoning proposal, zoning ordinance. And again, with this being somewhat of and I don't know much about the logging industry, but just knowing what was going on in 1970, 1980, and then 1990 on, I do not think that this type of activity with a log yard for the purpose of putting, obviously with the log yard, what happens is the logging trucks will deliver the product, the logs, if you will, raw material to the site. They're sorted, they're graded, and then they are put into a shipping container to either go to other sawmills that the company owns, or shipped abroad. And I think that's something fairly new. We obviously have, as discussed in emails, I believe it's a correct statement to say we have 3 log yards in Rockbridge County now. One is the Fitzgerald Lumber, that was a sawmill that they burnt down years ago. And now they don't utilize the sawmill portion of it, but they do utilize it as a wood yard. We have existing presence of Crown Hardwood in Rockbridge County on the David Derrick tract behind the formerly known as David Derrick Mill Works. And then we have Rock Holdings, which of course y'all saw a site plan not too terribly long ago with Rock Holdings LLC, I believe it is. I think, to my knowledge, those are only 3 log laydown yards we have in Rockbridge County. The difference between those 3 operations and this particular zoning text amendment is those are all located in a industrial zoning district. So wood yards are a permitted use in the industrial zoning district, and that's how those 3 identities, those 3 businesses wound up in the industrial zoning district without a sawmill. So obviously, as described in the email, and they're different uses. The sawmill is one use, and then the log laydown yard is a separate use. I obviously acknowledge that a sawmill must include a log yard to be a operational sawmill. So with that being said, I think that sort of long-winded answer to your question, but I think it's just the dates.
Just wondered if there was a reason that it was deliberately left out, or whether it was just because of the nuances of log yard and sawmill were kind of thought of the same thing at that point. I guess that's.
Sounds to me like that, most of the time it was a sawmill with the log yard. Now it's become 2 separate businesses, it sounds like, or in some cases it can be. And it sounds like, so all of the sawmills that the 3 we have are all in industrial areas right now.
Log yards.
Log yards.
Yes.
Okay.
We do have 2. We do have 2 sawmills in an agricultural zone that I know of, and that's of course the Deacons out on Murat Road, and then American Hardwoods on Fredericksburg Road, which unfortunately had a devastating fire this morning. And it was from what we're reporting, it was a total loss of that business. So I have spoken with the general manager of American Hardwoods, and sent our, condolences, if you will, and stated that it's obviously way too early to know their future plans, but I did reach out to him this morning and just say that, we're here to assist as always.
So those two sawmills, are they located, I mean, is that special exception?
Yes, ma'am.
A2 with
Both of
special
them are
exception?
operating under special exception. To my knowledge, both of them were done in the early 80s, I'm guessing.
Deacons, don't they have to come back every so often? I think they got to come back.
No, sir. That both of those were at one time a temporary special exception permit, but our county attorney has determined that temporary special exception permits are problematic, and they were especially problematic for that type of operation dealing with lending institutions. So when you're in a temporary special exception permit,
Right,
and you
they
go
don't-
to a lending institution
You give
and
them
say,
money.
hey, I want this, they say, hey, let me look at your special exception permit, and realize that's a temporary use, or could be perceived as a
I
temporary
know it hadn't
use.
been that long ago they had that they were, so that's why I'm asking. To me, you're sitting here and we're looking at log yards in special exception in ag, and it doesn't make sense to me not to kind of move forward with this, because it's a whole lot less intrusive than a sawmill right now, and I don't really feel like they're going to pop up any and everywhere around.
You have to think about it might.
David and I talked a little bit, and I agree with him. It's not like it'll pop up, but it's something that we're living that to me is a good. It would be good to have a few around. They are good to have around, because I know when I worked at the sawmill, we had log yards all up and down the 81 corridor, and in different spots, and some of them were in the middle of a field just about beside a guy's house, and they worked fine. We picked up logs, we went on our merry way and did our thing. It was just a spot for a local guy to come toting in some logs on his trailer, or a lot of times, or maybe even somebody that's really commercial logging, to come in and drop them off instead of having to haul them 200 miles. He could take them and sell them and get them purchased.
Basically, the text amendment is to add it as a use by special exception in A2.
That would be correct.
And this is like you're talking about, back when everything happened in the 70s, it was everybody toted things to a sawmill, and there were little sawmills everywhere, more so than they are now. And so it wasn't as needed, I guess. Plus, we got logs. I mean, people are hauling logs from Kentucky and West Virginia to sawmills here in the county, and have been for years. George Shoemate, he bought tons of logs from over the lower end of West Virginia and Kentucky. Trucked them in when he had the mill. So
I think it's important that we keep control over, where they're located. I mean, if you've got trucks coming and going, we need to have some say on where it's got to be.
It's got to
wouldn't
be
want
special.
one up in the end of Walker's Creek.
Well, right. We were just talking about that property and the hairpin turns and whatever,
Right.
you're not going to put something.
There's spots that things
out
work
there.
good, spots that things don't work good. So
A lot of logs coming down Walker's Creek Road right now, so a lot of logs.
but you wouldn't want
But
a log
this-
yard up there with tractor trailers running in and out of there all the time.
No. No, but it is, forestry is
Right.
a business, pretty good business in Rockbridge County, so I guess where we go here now is staff, where do we go from here as far as?
We need to add it to the agenda.
Yes,
next
that is
August.
correct. Again, I don't think it's appropriate to direct, and we're not prepared to obviously have a public hearing, but from here on out, we could certainly add it to the consideration of a zoning text amendment to the August.
And we would
Planning
advertise that to the public in case they have input
No,
or
ma'am,
no.
not at that time. I mean, we would advertise it. We would advertise it as far as the agenda goes, and that's why I think we have to have certain perimeters of what we discuss here tonight and what we don't discuss here tonight because of the public input process, obviously. So based on that, it would be advertised, if you will, on the agenda, but it would not be a bona fide public hearing. And then that would be the following month. If the
Once we
discussion.
propose
Discussion
the text
continued, it
amendment.
would continue. If not,
Yes.
then we could take it to public hearing.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. And then working with Crown Hardwood, I've discussed today, they, if and when we do take it to a public hearing, that would be for obviously a countywide zoning text amendment. However, we would help facilitate application for a special exception that could run concurrently. That's not a comment. Obviously, the zoning text amendment would go first. The planning commission would have to recommend to the board of supervisors approval of the proposed zoning text amendment. The following agenda item could very well be for Crown Hardwood, and then that would be a recommendation to the board of supervisors, and then the board of supervisors would follow suit, if you will, as far as the order of the
So does the
items.
timing work that both of those could happen in August, or is it more likely September?
It's definitely September, because what I'm saying is that we will have it on the agenda for consideration, and at that time, the planning commission could instruct staff to take it to public hearing. I don't think it would be appropriate to direct staff to a public hearing without formally having it on the agenda for consideration. That goes back to your statement of, inviting the public, that type of thing.
Okay. Got it.
All right, so the motion is to have it on the agenda.
Well, I wouldn't even really say a motion
really
is
a motion. I
necessary.
think
I would just say
We
instruction.
just need to say.
Instruct staff
Staff.
to put it on the agenda for the April, August.
Wow, April.
Yeah.
I was telling someone else that they're coming to the board of supervisors in July. So.
Oh, there you go.
I'm sorry, in June. I think is what I told them. Looked at me, June? No, I'm sorry. It has been a long week.
Yes.
All right. So let's go on to the last agenda item, which would be the discussion of the solar arrays, solar fields.
Yes, and so let me pull up the agenda item. Mr. Musso has done a tremendous job on gathering information with what other localities are doing, both small scale, residential scales, utility scale, small cell solar projects. Just reading verbatim from this, per last month's Planning Commission discussion, staff has continued to research how other localities handle both residential and utility / large scale solar projects. Staff is currently working on a draft ordinance pertaining to both residential and utility scale solar projects. The draft ordinance will be based on similar ordinances found throughout the Commonwealth, as well as additional correspondence and discussions with staff, members of the public, and planning commission members themselves. And so it's not at a point, and Mr. Busso again has done a tremendous job on it. We've even got a draft ordinance going, but it's not at the point that it's all public knowledge, obviously, but it's not something that we're at a point now that we would like to publish to the public, if you will. And so what we are recommending to move this forward and to sort of kickstart, to continue discussion is what I would like to do next month, if the Planning Commission is willing, is to have a work session for the sole purpose of the solar ordinance discussion. And I think that could get others involved, if you will, during the work session. And at that time, I'm confident that we would have a draft ordinance, that could be not published by any means, but that could be presented to the public. And so if that is something y'all like to talk about, I'm thinking a minimum at 5:30 before the Planning Commission next time, and we'd have to advertise as the public meeting, and staff of course would take care of all that, and it would be a call to order and a work session type situation, and we would advertise that on the agenda. It wouldn't be a bona fide public hearing by any means, but similar advertisement as far as getting the word out type thing.
Right. So I'm a little confused, because when we talked 2 meetings ago, we talked about kind of getting a group of people together that we're going to have input. And I mean, it just feels like we're way down the road before we've ever really gotten any input from other people. And
Yes.
I kind of feel like he's doing all this work, but we're not getting any input here. So I'm a
Sure.
little.
And so we can certainly share that with y'all tomorrow, I think I said it last month, is that in order, I'm still not opposed to a committee, if you will, but I do feel like it's imperative that we have a starting point for that discussion.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I feel like we've got a really good starting point. You've spent 2 months, getting together something. And we told that guy, one of the gentlemen, I guess, from, who was it that put out the Rockbridge Farmers, not the Rockbridge Farmers, the Farm Bureau,
Yes.
Farm
you
Bureau.
know, that you're going to be involved. The guy who had done a lot of stuff, and had a lot, he had a lot of information about solar arrays and stuff. I just feel like we said that 2 meetings ago that we're going to get you guys, or 3 meetings ago. Yes, we want your input, but we kind of have sort of left them in the dust, I guess.
Well, we've been in constant communication. I mean, not constant communication, but I have been in conversation with all the people you're referencing and sort of tried to keep them up to date the best I
Have
could.
you been with RACs as well? And
We have had multiple conversations with members of RAC, yes.
With everything he's gathered up and got together, and with you being in communication with the other folks and gentlemen, and it's going to be advertised to the public as far as the meeting and the work session goes. I mean, we're going to get that's good starting point, tons of good information from all over the state with what everybody else got, along with us and anybody from the public who wants to show up at 5:30. And you buying food?
I don't know. I'll buy something.
I better ask that while we're in.
It's dinner time.
But no, it's.
I just don't want to leave those people
No,
out
I
because
agree,
we
but
said
it's
we're
going to be
gonna
open to
include-
the public. So I mean, anybody wants to come in and say, I hate solar arrays, or Mr. Moeller, we need to use different fence because it's in an agriculture area or whatever it might be, can come and put their comments in and 2 cents worth in and have it considered.
I think that's something important is, people, they need to speak up sooner rather than later. You can't wait till we've had a vote on something and gone through with something and then come and share your input. Like,
Well,
they're going to have to get that.
If we're doing, and I'll say this again, if security is part of the deal with these solar panels, and I appreciate Mr. Moeller's comments with the nobody's going to steal them, but I look at them being vandalized. I look
Kids
at
somebody getting in
somebody
there
going
just
in
goofing off
maybe some kids or teenagers or whatever going in, somebody getting hurt because you are dealing with some it's electrical, it's electricity, it will kill you if you do the wrong thing. So why would we not want them secure in that way? Not to mention the fact we're sitting here in VEPCO, how many last year before last, they were all wound up about securing their areas and putting up fence that you couldn't see through and making sure that somebody couldn't shoot a transformer from a road. So same deal.
Yeah, and so yes, sir. So to back up to Melissa's comments, I'm not opposed to creating that committee, and I certainly want to further explore that. But I do, again, I think it is imperative that we have a solid starting point or a solid foundation to start that discussion with others. And I've found just with the past, if you will, if you don't have that solid footprint or that solid foundation, a very good start on it, we can really get astray from.
I think you can, but I also think you can limit people's thinking. If you came, and I know this happens, you guys come up with a list of draft conditions or whatever, which we really appreciate, but I think sometimes we don't think outside the box because we're just thinking about what you guys have spoon fed us. And so for me, you gave us some great examples of things that are going on in other areas, but it'd be kind of nice just to sort of on our own kind of come up with something, just because otherwise it's too easy to just take what they've done and then we don't consider our own kind of think outside the box for our own area. I mean, that's just my opinion.
So maybe included in the work session, we can include multiple materials in the work session. And if y'all want them prior to the work session, just let me know. We can certainly bombard you with information that Mr.
Right.
Busso has done. With that being said, potentially with the work session package, we can not only include the draft agenda, but we can also include, the draft ordinance at the date of, where we are at that time, but we can also include the other models that we've done. And then twofold, to Robert's point, that's absolutely an invitation for anyone who wants to come and be part of that work session, certainly be open to the public. That's not to say y'all won't then instruct staff to form a solar committee and continue that. It's really just been the workload type situation for Mr. Busso and myself, as far as getting even to this point.
If I can just really quick too, and we obviously want to do things right and we don't want to rush anything, but we're receiving calls from solar developers and landowners about getting started on another solar facility.
I think we definitely need to deal with it sooner
And
rather than later.
We've told them consistently that we're working on ordinances. I just had a discussion with a lady who said, I was looking for ordinances and I couldn't find any in the county. What's going on? And I think putting this off is kind of making developers step back and hold off. So I think that always has to be in the forefront of our mind too going forward, is we don't want to rush things, but we do kind of want
I think we need to move
get the
quickly
ball rolling
personally, because I don't want to look at another solar project unless we have something in line, because I just think there's just too many things that we just don't have any direction on what we need to be doing here long term.
With everything that they've done working in getting a proposed ordinance together for us, and then having the 19 other documents they've got from other counties or how many it might be. And they've pulled the best, what they felt were the best for our area is a good starting point. Now we may look at it and go, I don't know, don't like this, but we like this from a different county. We'd rather have it. As long as we got it all in front of us and other guys have done the work already. Hey,
Right.
the guy that owns our company says the best ideas I've ever had, I stole from somebody else. And that's a fact.
Well, but
everything
I
is
also think we've got some great resources here in our county that maybe other counties don't have. And so we may come up with something better that they
Yes.
didn't think about, and so that's the thing. I just don't want to cut off that discussion or input from these people who are coming from a totally different background than maybe where these other things are coming from.
I agree.
100%. I agree.
And I think a
Absolutely.
public workshop would be a step
I think
in
that's
the right direction.
definitely.
Yes, not to say that we're not still going to do a committee again, that type of thing. And people still, obviously, people still can make those applications. And we very well may have an application prior to getting a solar ordinance. But with that being said, and someone actually sort of got on me, if you will, that's a professional statement, got on me about making this statement at the Board of Supervisors meeting that honestly, I think it will somewhat streamline the process. I mean, going to your point of not wanting to look at these before we have direction, it's going to be the same outcome. I don't see any different outcome than dynamic as far as the process goes from beginning to the end, landscaping, distance away from the property lines, X, Y, and Z. There'll be a lot of commonalities, but it will be, we will get the information rather than over a 3-month period with the Fitzgerald property or the Alexander property, the dynamic property. We will get a lot of that information at the very beginning. Y'all requested photo simulations. Next month, they came back with photo simulations. Y'all required additional landscaping, modifications. They came back.
I was going to say, so it's not going to take 4 months to get something through because they're going to know what we want right up front,
Potentially,
which,
yes.
I think
Expectations,
we're all
basically, up
really
front.
busy. And so if you can streamline the process, and I think for companies too, if they feel like, God, we're going to have to go through this for 4 or 5 months to get approval, that would be discouraging when you've got, a county, 2 counties away who's ready to go right now.
They know based on the other counties around us that already do have ordinance and they know what to expect. And so at this point, it's just a guessing game for them of what does Rockbridge County want compared to, so if we get this all on paper, it'll definitely streamline.
I just want to reiterate, the whole thing comes down to, we sat here in a public meeting and said, Melissa's going to be on it, Rack's going to be on, we made a list and said, these people are going to be on a committee, and we haven't talked one time as a group, so.
We have. Staff has, but I completely understand where
Right.
you're coming from. And
Nobody's called me.
That being said, 5:30, is that going to be soon, early enough? Is that going to be enough time?
Y'all tell me. That gives us an hour and a half, obviously.
I think with the work that he's done, I don't see why it shouldn't be able to be done in that period of time.
I just know you're inviting 10 other people to come into the mix now, and it's always. when you
Well,
get 10
so
other
that's one of my
opinions.
questions is, does it have to be to the public, or can it be to the people that we, in that meeting, said, we're going to invite you, we're going to invite you, we're going to invite
It would
you?
have to be a
Has to
public
be a
meeting.
public meeting.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
You can't meet unless it's public.
got it. Okay,
It's discriminatory.
got it.
Yep.
That's a
PC.
violation. of
Even though
ordinance.
there's, well, I guess it depends on how many PC members are there, but yeah, okay.
Yes,
Got it.
3 or more is the key.
Yeah.
And we want 3 or more y'all here.
Okay. Good deal. I make a
All right.
motion that we adjourn. Can we do
On.
that?
All in favor?
Aye.
It's done.
Woohoo.
All right. We appreciate
Thank
y'all's
you.
time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.